Yeah, I had 12 people said, we want to do it.
So who did you end up with?
So I ended, and out of those 12, I chose 6. Because they also had to be able to respond to me in a professional way, in a quick way, and be available, and be in the country, and be available for the students, and be open to the students approaching their company in a way that they might not have thought about. So I didn't want somebody that was like a real controlling on their company, because it wouldn't work, or somebody that's just not really available because they're out in the field so much they won't be able to communicate to the students. So we chose 6 companies, and we're using my company, of course, which is Kusikwi, and we do alpaca clothing hand knit by women in the Andes Mountains. So we're working with my company, we're working with Upavim, which my company, Upavim and Mayan Hands, we all work with indigenous people in the mountains, and we've been around for a very long time. They've been around for 20 years, I've been around for 15 years. So it's been a really great experience for the class, because they can see how companies are different. Okay, so Upavin and Mayan Hands, they both work in Guatemala. So as the students start looking at these companies, they start seeing, where does the company need help? And then that's kind of what's guided their research and what they're presenting on their website as being their problem statement. Then we have another company, which is a new company called Moleware, and that was set up by a person in California who likes to surf in Chile, and got to know the local communities from surfing, and developed his company based on that. We're working with Ordinami, which is a completely different company. They're more European-based. They're associated with all of the European fair trade organizations. They work in Pakistan, and they work in Sri Lanka with organic cotton and sneakers. We're working with Forest Trade, which is based out of Brattleboro, and they work in Guatemala and Indonesia with spices and coffee. So that's been a great experience for the students, because that's a totally different area where that's a market that is certifiable. So they're working with Fairtrade certified food products. I came up with the idea of Google Apps because I was working with Shari Bemis in developing this class last spring. And I was just kind of brainstorming, and I said, well, how do I do quantitative? What should I use for like a computer program? And she said, well, you can use an Excel spreadsheet, or you can use Google Docs. And I said, oh, well, what's that? And that's kind of, and I said, well, and that was also when, I was working with a nonprofit in my town of Brattleboro, and they were developing their website on open source software. And the web designer kind of gave me a little thing about, how open source is something that's really great, because you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars for software, and it's accessible to everybody. So I was thinking, okay, well, this is making a lot of sense for me, because I'm working with the developing world. I want to make sure that everybody can have access to what we're doing, and let's do it. So that was when I chose Google Sites as being the open source that we're going to be choosing to use for all of this. But I don't know how to use Google Sites. And my assumption was that the students would figure it out. And so I gave them a book. I found the book. It was very inexpensive. The missing, I forget what it's called, the missing something. And it's a series of books. It's sort of like, Google Sites for Dummies. But it was something else, the missing apps or something, I think is what it's called. And so I gave them that book to use as a starting point. And I said, go figure it out. You guys text, you guys surf, figure it out, and let's all learn together. And so they did. So they figured, I knew enough just to kind of show them, here's how to make up a template, here's how to put some words on it, and here's some things to do, this is how to add users, and go and figure it out. So they did. They went and figured it out, and we'd come back to class and show each other what we did, and they'd figure it out some more, come back to class. And then it got to one point where they had gotten their sites built, and they needed to fine-tune them. All the information was up there, but it needed to be edited, it needed to be rearranged in how it was presented, it needed to be categorized in an easy-to-follow manner, because that was something I realized. I assumed that they knew how to design a website. I know how to design a website. I've been designing websites for 20 years. I just know how to do it. I don't know HTML, okay, but I know what they can do, and I have an e-commerce business, and I've had that for 12 years. So, I know how to present data online, and I assume the students did too, and they didn't. So they had these websites that were just disasters. So I went through them, piece by piece, page by page, and told them what needed to get done. And I gave it back to them, and they went to do it, and they couldn't do it. And they came back to me, they said, you know, this is just ridiculous, we're wasting all our time, can't we do something else? And I said, sure, you know, what would you like to do? If this isn't working, you know, let's not, you know, stay on something that's not going to work. And they said, well, we want to do, one person said, let's do PowerPoint. And I said, well, you know, you can also do a document, that's what most people are doing for this class. And they said, and then some students thought about it, they said, we don't want to do that because it can't get off our desk. You know, we want to share this with people. We want this site to work. We want to get this out there. We want to make this be something that people can come to and see. A paper's not going to do that. We're going to do this. So they kind of recommitted themselves to it. My students spend about 7 to 8 hours a week, you know, working on the technology of this project. But if you figure out they're in groups of 3, because it's Google Sites, they're not working together. So and they have tasks. So one student might be just doing the programming, another student might be doing the data gathering, another student might be doing the editing. So combined, they're putting in about 7 hours a week on their website, which, you know, makes sense for that class. You know, divided between 3 people, it's 2 hours a week. You know, that's nothing. And then, of course, they're spending about another 4 hours a week on the content, you know, researching and writing and putting things together. So it's really nice because I think it gives them, you know, examples of what can be done. They're sharing the technology with each other, so they're learning from each other, and yeah, and I think they have a lot of buy-in to it. You know, they're very committed, and as they kind of get over these little lumps and they figure it out, then it's just like high five. You know, look what we've done now, and it's exciting. They're excited about it. I've been very clear to the companies and to the students that there is no obligation for them to provide anything of worth to the companies. You know, and that there's no expectation that anything they're going to do has a monetary value to it. Because I don't want them to feel like, you know, I don't want them to feel inhibited in what they're doing. But I've been very surprised, you know, because I said, you know, don't even worry about the company, just worry about what you're interested in, what's interesting to you. But one student group is doing an education piece on how do you know if something's fair trade and not, and does it matter? Which I think actually is going to be more useful for my client than what they originally thought they wanted. Because if people don't care that it's certified or not, then why even bother doing it? I think everything the students are doing is useful for the customers, because what one group is doing for autonomy is they're doing an environmental, they have one of the students is in an environmental class that he really likes, and he's applying that now to this project, and he's looking at the environmental impact of autonomy sneakers versus Nike. And all of the toxic chemicals that go into the Nike soles, the 600-year decomposition life on Nike sneakers, all of the artificial chemicals and materials that go into the dyes, the wastewater and how that's contaminating environments. So he's doing that. And then they're looking at their little organic sneaker made out of natural rubber that's like certified by the Forestry Council or whatever. So that's useful information, because then, you know, that's another feather that autonomy can put in their hat. You know, not only are we not sweatshops, but look at how we decompose. Look at how we are protecting the planet. Look at how we don't have toxic chemicals in our products. So I think everything they do is going to end up being useful for the customer. It might not be what the customer expected, but I tried not to have expectations anyway, but I think everything's going to be useful.